In this video, we will discuss how to conduct a literature review. First, what is a literature review and why do we use one? A literature review, for our purposes, is part of a research paper that summarizes the relevant literature on a research topic. In summarizing and evaluating the existing literature, you should focus on those parts that are relevant to your topic. If you're writing about the effect of the minimum wage on health, then you should be less concerned with papers on the effect of the minimum wage on housing values. So a literature review is going to be focused on the topic of interest and oriented around the outcomes you're studying. A benefit of a well-written literature review is that it explains to the reader how your work fits into the literature and clarifies your contribution to the literature. A literature review can also be helpful for identifying research designs and methodologies that may be appropriate for your work. If you can't find a paper using stochastic frontier analysis on your topic, then you probably don't need to use it for your research question, for example. Another way to use a literature review is to support your arguments and conclusions by identifying and justifying potential mechanisms. For example, if you find that the minimum wage reduces health, it could be because it reduces employment, in which case the literature on the relationship between the minimum wage and employment will be helpful to support your argument. Conducting a literature review involves three main steps. First, you need to identify a set of relevant papers. There are lots of ways of doing this, and a natural starting point is to look in Google Scholar and look at the first few pages of results and see what comes up. I'm going to talk about another way in just a few slides as well. Next, you need to read the papers and pull out the information that you need. That's why we began the semester by reading a paper. When you're starting a research paper, it isn't always clear what information you will need from a paper, so you may also keep going back to the same set of papers in order to draw out different aspects of those papers. Finally, when you write a literature review, you aren't simply listing off papers. Instead, you're trying to use those papers to tell a story. This is the collation process in which you organize the information you collected and construct thematic paragraphs on the themes you identified that are relevant to your research question. One way to approach these literature reviews is to use a template to help you systematically summarize papers. And we're going to use an Excel template to help us do that. Our template is going to include fields for the research question, hypotheses, data, methods, results, and conclusions, as well as a column for your own notes about each paper. I also want to discuss a second approach to conducting a literature review, which relies on an AI research assistant called Elicit. I encourage you to sign up for this free service, and you can always delete your account after the class. In Elicit, we ask a research question. In this case, how does the minimum wage affect health? And Elicit will identify a set of papers in its database that are responsive to your question. In the results screen, the papers are listed on the right. And for each paper, there are links to the paper or at least sufficient information to identify the paper of interest. Finally, Elicit will produce a summary of the top 4 papers, which can be a starting point for a brief paragraph summarizing these papers. One thing to notice in our example is that Elicit accidentally used the same paper twice, the Horn paper, because it shows up in its database through 2 different mechanisms. So you always need to be careful, and you can't fully rely on Elicit to do your thinking for you, and that's true for all AIs. Clicking through to find a paper in Elicit will typically take you to the article on a journal website. As you look at the site, you may notice that the paper is not free to the public. But you are special. As a UNCG student, you can access the paper and most papers through the university library. Just look for the Login Through Institution button, and that will take you to a login page where you can find UNCG and log in through our normal UNCG authentication system. Good luck with your literature reviews.